Okay, Scott's going to tell us about the Atlatl, which is an ancient technology, but it was used up into the 16th century by Aztec warriors in battle. So Scott, what is this all about?
It's all about sticks. Is really what it's all about. But it's the kind of sticks you have. The Atlatl, or spear thrower, is one of the oldest composite weapon systems in the world. As opposed to, like, say, if you'd lived in the Paleolithic, you would have taken your spear out and, jabbed a mammoth or hand thrown that spear. It's a weapon that allows you to launch something much more effectively than you can do with your bare hand. It's such a good system that instead of a big heavy spear like a lance, you can throw these much more arrow-like projectiles at a much greater speed than you can with your bare hand. So an atlatl, it's a weird word, as you mentioned, with the Aztecs. The word we use is from the Central American language groups. And in Australia, they have a version called a woomera, which is a slightly bigger weapon. Many people around the world use some version of this prior to the invention of the bow, and some even without the bow at all. They never developed that technology because they didn't need it. In its most basic form, an atlatl is a hooked stick, and the one you have here is kind of a fancier version, but you can see right here, if you found a branch growing off of a trunk, how you could take that and potentially shape that into a hooked thing like a giant crochet hook. Another easy way to produce an atlatl, or spear thrower, takes the opposite approach. Instead of a hook sticking out, you can use a piece of cane or bamboo to make a cup-shaped indentation there at a joint, that instead of having to have the hook stick into the spear sticks into the thrower. And we may start out with that one here today. So if you hang on to that one, let's talk about points on these things, because this is one of those things where people began to figure out the projectile tips out there. We put the cutting thing on the throwing thing, and we end up with a better way to get our dinner. Many people around the world developed some composite system for the projectile itself using a foreshaft with a stone tip. That foreshaft is removable and replaceable, being placed into the reinforced end of a spear or dart. Some people call it a dart as opposed to a spear because it's not a lance-like thing. There are a lot of traditions around the world where people did not use foreshafts. In fact, some of this sort of enigmatic technology we have here for the Middle Archaic may be that they got rid of the foreshaft and just began putting the projectile point directly into a little notched socket right there. So people in the past would have carried a handful of spears and their atlatl into the woods to go hunting with. So that's how...
Maybe one of their kids is a caddy.
Yeah, they got your atlatl caddy. Yes, indeed. So to throw a spear with an atlatl, we have our two kinds here. We have our slightly fancier hooked one. I like to start people out with the cane or bamboo one, simply because it's easier to keep the spear on the thrower itself. So what we will do is we'll take one with some colors to it, because that way if we miss, we can more easily find this. So what we'll do, we'll take that. I like to do it this way. There are a lot of analogies to baseball in atlatls, in that some people, just like baseball pitchers, are more comfortable throwing with a sort of split finger approach, and some people can do a slightly different sort of almost knuckleball kind of thing with it. I tend to have a much better follow through when I throw with the split finger method. So we're going to take that and launch it with the thrower. So that's the
I think you just got dinner.
I did. Well, it's a little low, but we're good. All right. So let's give you a dart. We're using, since there's nothing out there to eat, cardboard boxes aren't very tasty most of the time. I don't put stone tips on the target darts, and I also use my patented duct tape fletching method to create darts, so that if you lose one in the woods, you don't have hours spent putting feather fletchings on these.
That's duck feathers.
Duck feathers.
All right.
All right, so what we want to do, now here's some of the finesse of atlatl throwing. When you see people first try it, they've never done it before, they think it's some sort of a catapult, and they go like that, which results in a very poor throw. When you think about this, let's take that baseball analogy a little bit further, in that when you throw a baseball, you throw towards what you're throwing at. So with an atlatl, you have a longer arm, but that hook is your baseball. right there, leaning over your shoulder. And when you throw, what you do is you bring it forward to the point where you have to release the spear, but you keep throwing
Follow through.
straight in the follow through
Okay.
and pushing on. So it's more of a straight line throw like that.
Okay.
So give it a try.
All right, here we go. Do I hold it like that? or-
You can, I usually put the dart over my fingers and secure it. A lot of people do, support out there. If you're more comfortable with that, there's no right or wrong way.
Like that?
That's right, that'll
All right,
work.
here
Just
we
see
go.
what you can do.
Let's see.
All right, well,
that was.
you
I
didn't,
I didn't hit the target.
you
but
didn't throw the atlatl.
I didn't throw the atlatl.
People say throw atlatls, but you don't ever want to throw your atlatl. You want to throw some spears with your atlatl, and that's a great start. So
All right.
try that again.
Let's try
Get
it
comfortable
again.
with the bamboo thrower there.
All right, here we go again. Let's give this. Oh,
Got it.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. My first mammoth.
The only thing about the hooked atlatl is
Uh-huh.
that you really have to, it works really well. I like the way they work slightly better than the cup variety that we're just using. But the problem is that when you put this on, atlatls are very closely related to archery. In fact, some people say, well, the atlatl was the ancestor of archery. I think the atlatl was the first archery, because when we refer to the various parts, if you make a flexible atlatl, you're said to tiller that atlatl, much in the same way bowyers, people who make bows, tiller the limbs of the bow. This is the nock and the nock point of the dart, just like the little slot on the end of an arrow is the nock of the arrow.
And you changed the flexi part of the whole contraption.
Right, the whole contraption
right?
changes a little bit, yeah. You go from, the projectile is long, but when you go to bows, the weapon is long and the projectile is short, but we go from a short weapon and a long projectile to that. So the hardest part is keeping the dart knocked onto the thrower itself, and that means you have to really put the death grip on the thrower before you throw with the hooked variety. You sort of escape some of that. And the problem with this is that a lot of people, when they throw, the dart becomes sort of disengaged in the middle of their throw, and they do that, and people karate chop darts in half with the atlatl and the follow through and that sort of thing. But bump it up against that hook on the thrower really tightly, as tight as you can. And that's why I like this method right here, because you can really put the death grip on that before you throw that thing.
Whoa.
So let's try that for a couple of shots and just see what you. I'll hold one and you get the other one, and put it on top of your fingers, on top of those.
Oh,
fingers.
on top
and
of those.
there you go. Yeah, that way you can it makes your knuckles hurt like the devil, but you're not gonna keep it there for long anyway. All right.
Well, that's
better.
I didn't quite make it there, but. No.
Last shot,
All right.
Victor. Last shot.
Come on.